Heyo, it's me, and we're gonna be doing just a review of a game that I'm currently playing with Furtick. This is probably more directed at him. We're currently playing a game um, that he said I could review. Um, it's He's played in a tournament recently, the under 1300s, which is still ongoing, and I wanted to play against him just to see how much he's improved. Because after watching his games, I think he's a lot better than he is, or that he was. I mean, um, and he came extremely close to beating me. Uh, he created a winner take all situation, and when I pointed this out to him, he didn't exactly understand. And basically, whoever made normally when you have chess, it's the first or second move that, or sorry, the first, second or third mistake that costs you the game. But because he played such a strong game, he created a winner take all, where the first mistake costs you the game, which unfortunately is basically what's happened now. It's still ongoing, so he could turn it around, but in all honesty, it's not likely. Um, so I'm gonna go through the game, go step by step, and and we'll see what's going on. But to be honest, I have nothing but praise for him on this game because he actually played a really strong game. Um, to be honest, it's completely unorthodox. And it scared the hell out of me at first because I was like, no, you don't want to play like that. It's just wrong. You want to get your king save. But he made it work. Partially, that is. But it's just like me with my opening. Most people would say my opening is horrendous and it's suicidal, but I make it work. Um, Now, pawns are normally used as scouts. Like, you're not supposed to send them into a line charge, but that's exactly what he does. And if this is what he wants to do and keep perfecting, that's great. Um, so he does e5, I did e4, knight f3, and he does f6, which threw me off. He knows my opening very well. He knows I was going to play bishop to c4 to do the pawn. So he immediately pushed the pawn up and eliminated that threat straight away. Um, During the course of this game, I constantly try to set up conditional moves, but he always made the move that I didn't plan for, which is perfect. It means he's not predictable. He's playing the unpredictable moves, um, except for the last one, which cost him the game. So knight c3, he does good. That was good. No longer is he putting the knights to the side. He's learning to get them into the center now. My bishop comes out. He basically forced me into a standard opening, like a textbook opening. I do the a3, which telegraphs I'm planning to move the bishop back. From this point, I take control of the white square. d3. And that was good. He got the knight in the center. I probably should have exchanged here straight away and got rid of the threat, but I didn't. I didn't like because I saw immediately as soon as I take the pawn, sorry, take the knight, pawn takes knight, and I have to move this knight then. So anticipating that, I just let it stay there. I much rather have the queen on f3 than having to move that knight. So he reinforces that knight, which is good. He's um, personally, I would prefer if he started developing his bishops more. Um, but this is just as good. In a closed position like this is going to be, knights are incredibly strong. something for black to consider in future games is when you play this, you want to try and exchange the opponent's knights for your bishops. The bishops are not so much as useful in a closed position. So if he had managed to get rid of my knights, he wouldn't have been in trouble. But he allowed one knight to stay on the board, and that's all I needed to claw my way to victory. He almost beat me, and he should have beaten me, to be honest. Um, so he's starting to do his attack, and I'm like saying, "What the hell are you doing? You've opened up your queen side. You've opened up your king side. You have nowhere for your king to castle now." Um, I was like, "Are you suicidal?" But uh, but if you notice, he's taken control of the dark squares. He's made my black squared bishop obsolete. Any of the squares that my bishop would go on, he's completely blocked off now. His pawns are going on the dark square bishops, dark colored squares. And as you will see, all my pieces, most of my pieces go on light colored squares. So, yeah, I start working on building up pieces, momentum, so I could exchange that knight off in the center. Because I am not ignoring my lesson. I don't want a knight in the middle of the board. I am trying to intimidate him. But I really don't want to lose a piece for a pawn, so now I've put the knight back, and now I can use this knight to exchange that knight, and yeah. So he goes ahead and forces my hand. This pawn is kind of a little bit ambitious, but it makes sense. But somebody consider that just forces my hand. I have to take with that knight. I'm not going to put it on the side. I can't put it there. I could have put it back to e1, but that undoes everything I was planning. So he has a pawn on a d4, and I put the bishop there. He now attacks the other bishop, and I put it back. And he's starting to have a very good... He has a good attack. Currently, the weakest... The weak link in his defense right now is the f6 pawn. He did the right thing by moving it, but he needed to support it. There's nothing defending this pawn right now. And also he's got a little bit of a gap, a hole in either side of that pawn. And that's what my whole entire plan was based around, is taking advantage of this hole, this gap in the middle. I was aware the entire time that he's slowly pushing his pawn forwards and trying to cramp my position. So he gets his knight out. I put my bishop back here, and he closes off the gap, which is perfect, keeping my dark square bishop obsolete. There's nowhere for it to go. There's nothing for it to really do. I tried to. It was kind of a waste of move since I just put the bishop there, and I was like, make him do some of his work. And he did. And here I went ahead and did f4. I was thinking if he would remember to do en passant, but he didn't. I kind of took advantage that I kind of figured he would forget yet again that he doesn't know he could do en passant. So he goes ahead and move the knight to push my bishop back. Now, that was kind of... Yes, I took advantage of him knowing that he wouldn't do the en passant, which I knew would be critical for my plan. This entire basically what would be the burst pawn, the f pawn, is vital for me. He really needs to either move this knight or get their bishop to e7 to protect both those pawns. Those pawns are very dangerous. Like, if these two pawns are holding up the entire black's position, if they get taken, the defense, the whole attack line falls apart. So he goes ahead and does that pawn next, which is okay. Because he's thinking nothing can really attack that pawn right now. But he just doesn't see the threat that's coming. And I hope I made him smile by doing this, because I did it what he calls the dragon teeth with the pawn line. And that's where you use it for. When the best way to stop a pawn charge is to shove a pawn in the way. This is kind of good. I mean, he realized he had to defend that pawn, so... And I think he kind of... I don't know if he thought I was going to put my knight here or bishop here. But, again, he's created holes. And I am in control of the white color squares. And I'm taking advantage of that. My knight here can now go to this one, and this one. This knight's protecting this square. By moving the rook, he's closed off that potential. So he kind of does me a favor and attacks the knight. And I go ahead and put my knight where I want it to be. Now, he did good by making me exchange the knight. But ideally, when you have a closed position like this, like I said, you want to keep your knights on the board and get rid of my knights. Exchange your in a closed position, exchange your bishops for the other guy's knights. In an open position, sacrifice your knights or exchange your knights for the bishops, because the bishops are stronger in an open game. So now I take advantage of the one piece that he is not guarded. Keep your eye on this pawn. I mean, that was the entire idea of moving the knight here. Because I anticipated him putting the bishop here to protect that pawn. So once I put the queen knight there, he would have to move the queen, and then he would lose the bishop. But he saw that, which is, again, credit to him. But he somehow needs and has to absolutely defend this pawn. Once this pawn goes, it's over for black. Bishop e3. And that I absolutely loved. And then I did king to h1. And then he did rook to h7. This is where I messaged him, and I said, be absolutely careful. Because my next move was bishop takes f6. So we'll go ahead and do this. Because the correct move would have been rook to h6 to protect that pawn, but he missed it, and I took the pawn. Now, this is the point that I said to him, you have to be careful. One move or one mistake is going to cost the game for either side. And I set up like at least 10 different conditional moves based on all the alternatives that I saw that black could do. And he goes ahead and does the one move that I missed, and it was the mistake move, unfortunately. But black is 9 moves away from checkmating white. When you get to this opportunity where you see that the king is penned in, the king can't go anywhere, you've got the king trapped. The only thing that is blocking the or defending the king is these 2 pawns. That's the g2 and e4 pawns. So if you go ahead and get a bishop onto that diagonal, suddenly it becomes very cramped and very scary. Um, the only thing that could stop the checkmate, basically, is this bishop, since it's controlling the white squares and it's digging into black's side. So you needed to, black really needed to stop this and find a way to get rid of these two pawns that are blocking black from going to checkmate. And here it is, like line 6. I had all the conditional moves. If he played it perfectly, it was a forced checkmate. And that's how it would have ended up. I mean, it doesn't get any sweeter than that. So let's go ahead and do this. And so the correct moves is d5. Now, white could take, but that would have been a mistake. I go to e5. Oh, my bad. And then he goes to c4, which now blocks his bishop, blocks my bishop. But you're gonna say, well, now you got your own pawn blocking the white diagonal. Well, don't worry about that. We'll get to that. So, next is d takes c4. It has to, because white has to get that white diagonal reopened if possible. And then d takes c4. Bishop takes e7. Really, black has to ignore that. Like, yeah, you can have a knight. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna checkmate you in a couple of moves. Then h4, g3, then h3. Pawn up to f6 to protect the bishop since he didn't take it. Yeah, here it comes. Bishop b7, check. No, I don't want to put... Now, if you can see, the only thing that could have blocked it before was the bishop, and now black has blocked that off completely. And I don't want to put my queen there because I just lose a queen. But rook goes here. I mean, king can't move. Nothing can go on to g2. The only thing that can stop this from being mate is rook here. Pawn takes rook. It's starting to look very sweet for black, isn't it? And I try to think of anything I could have done to stop this, and there isn't really. I mean, I could have done queen to g1, but that doesn't help. So I just made c3. Check. Queen has to go there to block the mate check, and bishop takes queen, and that's checkmate. Doesn't get any sweeter than that. So, unfortunately, he missed it, and he went here instead. And unfortunately, that costs black the game, because my next move is I mean, I could have moved my knight here, checked, and win the rook anyway, but I wanted the extra piece. Why wouldn't you? So he takes. I think black. I think Freddy's about to move. um, Pawn up, and now you can see the danger and why the f pawn is dangerous. Because now there's nothing that's going to stop this pawn from getting home. King there, which I understand why he wanted to trying to stop the pawn. If he goes back to e8, pawn goes up check, and you lose a rook that way. Knight here, and it's a double check. Bishop. Like I said, that bishop on the diagonal is very dangerous. Easy to forget. King here. Taking the rook is okay. Pawn up. And he puts the rook there. Knight takes rook. He takes the knight, which is fair enough. And then promote it to a rook. I was thinking about promoting it to a knight, but I know he's going to just take back. But it's effectively over. I have 2 rooks and a queen. And it just cost me a knight and a bishop and a pawn. So at this point, unfortunately, as you can see, just the one move by going to king to f7 is an entirely different game for black. If he had done the d5 move, he would have won. Alright, so I'll get this uploaded to the chess channel. I'll see you guys soon. Thank you very much.